Good afternoon, people of YouTube. So happy to have you all here today. It is been a pretty good weekend for me. I hope the weekend has been well for you. Lots of cool stuff to talk about with regards to the current double union strike happening in Hollywood. I wanted to extend my greetings to everyone in the chat. I see we got a little over 15 of you here, including Scribe Light, Six, Adega, Josh Hammond, HB Hags, Sean Stackhouse, Kojo Dragon, Andrew B. Versfeld, sorry. Happy to have you all here. So it's been a little bit of a time, hasn't it, everybody? We've got some interesting things to talk about. For starters, SAG has finally released what you can work on and what you can't work on. In fact, I'm going to show a little bit of that at this moment. So we'll just do this right here. So this, everybody, you can go to the website SAG-AFTRA to see a lot of details with regards to which union members, sorry, can work on what and how, so that's for basically with regards to independents and parties that projects that are not affiliated with the struck companies. So all the details can be found here at SAG-AFTRA. In fact, we're going to go look at a couple of them right now with regards to their official bulletin of the strike notice that you can find on that website. So let's take a look at that. Excuse me. So the official bulletin, codified basic agreement and television agreement, strike notice and order to all members of SAG-AFTRA. The National Board has declared a strike of all covered services under the producer SAG-AFTRA Codified Basic Agreement and SAG-AFTRA television agreements and their related agreements with regards to TV and theatrical contracts, and instructs all SAG-AFTRA members to cease rendering all services and performing all work covered by the TV theatrical contracts. The strike extends to productions covered by any of the following agreements, effective at 12:01 a.m. Pacific Time, July 14th, 2023. So we're going to take a look to see what sort of things that covers, and hopefully this will quell any of you guys out there who like cartoons, video games, radio shows, all those types of things. Hopefully this will give you a whole sense of clarification as to what to expect if you are fans of those mediums. So we have producer SAG-AFTRA codifies basic agreement, SAG-AFTRA television agreement, including new media, SAG-AFTRA new media agreement for high budget original or derivative programs, special new media agreements, low budget theatrical agreements or LBAs, moderate low budget project agreements, MPAs, and ultra low budget project agreements, UPA. Members may be able to work on projects produced by non-AMPTP related production companies under these agreements if such projects qualify for an interim agreement. A list of projects adhered to an interim agreement will be posted at the SAG-AFTRA So, for those of you wondering, yes, interim agreements. These were things that occurred in the 90s, I believe, with the previous SAG strike. And the interim agreement basically just means that if you are an independent producer, not affiliated with the AMPTP, and you want to make a project, you have to enter into an agreement with the unions for the unionized actors or talent that you will be meeting their requirements for work. And if the strike is resolved afterwards, then you, as a producer, get a added benefit with regards to the relationship between the union as well. You might even be able to qualify for status with the AMPTP if you so choose, but I'm not 100% on that. I think there are case-by-case bases for it. But that has been my understanding with some of the actors that I've been talking to regarding this and their relationship with independent productions. Let's see here. Excuse me. Except as set forth in the notice to members regarding non-struck work, all covered services and performing work under the TV theatrical contract must be withheld, including but not limited to principal on-camera work, such as acting, singing, dancing, performing stunts, piloting on-camera aircraft, puppeteering, performance capture, or motion capture work. Principal off-camera work, such as ADR or looping, TV trailers, promos, and theatrical trailers, voice acting, singing, narration, including audio descriptive services, except as these services may be covered by another collective bargaining agreement referred in the notice to members regarding non-struct work, stunt coordinating, and related services. This also covers background work, stand-in work, photo and or body doubles, fittings, wardrobe tests and makeup tests, rehearsals and camera tests, scanning, which is another controversial subject for actors, interviews and auditions, including via self-tape, promotion of publicity services for work under the TV theatrical contracts, such as tours, personal appearances, interviews, conventions, fan expos, festivals, for your consideration events, panels, premieres, screenings, award shows, junkets, podcast appearances, social media, studio showcases, negotiating and or entering into and or consenting to an agreement to perform covered services in the future, any new agreement related to merchandising connected to a covered project through creation and use of digital replicas, including through the reuse of prior work, performing on a trailer for a struck production or any or other ancillary content connected to a struck production. In addition, to ensure compliance with the rule to withhold all covered services, members who are also employed in non-performing capacities should consult with SAG-AFTRA by emailing sagaftrastrike@sagaftra.org. To the extent prohibited under applicable law, SAG-AFTRA will not discipline members for purely non-covered work done in other non-performing capacities. In addition to the withholding of all covered services, the following rules shall apply for the duration of the strike. Members must not cross SAG-AFTRA picket lines, subject to the exceptions outlined in the SAG-AFTRA's notice regarding non-struck work. Members must instruct their agent and or other representatives to discontinue conducting negotiations on their behalf with the studios, streamers, and networks for covered services. Members must inform SAG-AFTRA of all strike-breaking activity by emailing SAG-AFTRA-strike and sagaftra.org. And members are also bound by any rules or interpretations set forth in the FAQs relating to this strike notice and order. FAQs will be available shortly at sagaftrastrike.org member FAQs. And then this is, of course, signed by Duncan Crabtree and Fran Drescher. So that's where we are right here on the basic practices with regards to what is going to happen with the actors. So I hope that gives you some clarification in that front. I also want to let you know that recently there's been some interviews by actors and also statements on Twitter about a bunch of actors with regards to the situations at hand. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that think actors make a lot of money. A handful do. I remind everyone there's around 170,000 members of SAG-AFTRA. And because of those members, not all of them make hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year. In fact, in order for a SAG-AFTRA member to qualify for the benefits that the union provides, they have to clear a little over $26,000 a year. And a majority, and that has to be through paid work of ACTRA, and it doesn't include residuals as far as I know. And the vast majority of actors don't clear that. That's why they work in service a lot in between acting roles. That's why you'll hear stories of actors once they make it big that before they made it big, they were a bartender or a waiter, or they were selling shoes or clothes or what have you. Amy Adams, big actress nowadays. You can see some of her past interviews on Conan O'Brien and the Craig Ferguson Show, where she talks about she was working retail in a dress shop. And that's what she was doing prior to in between getting jobs. That's how it is for at least over 80% of actors right now. And it's been like that for a very long time. And what we have here is a situation where actors are kind of realizing that with the reduced episode order, there is less opportunity for them to work. And at the same time, with regards to the streaming models that are being done right now, there's also less residual payment. And the residuals work primarily with the studio side of things, not so much with Netflix. And this is one of the reasons why I've been big proponent on adopting the networks model for streaming. Excuse me for a second. I just need to get a drink. My throat's really dry. Okay, so actually, there's something quite interesting here. I'll share this. Sean Gunn, the brother of James Gunn, made a statement that has gotten a little bit controversial, but it also paints a little picture into what I've been alluding to for a few years now. So let's give a listen of that, and I will provide some additional commentary. I'm going to play it once, and hopefully the audio will work, because I did ask to share it on the StreamYard thing. But if it doesn't, just let me know in the chat, and I'll fix it up. So here we go.
Particularly wanted to come out and protest Netflix, because I was on a television show called Gilmore Girls for a long time that has brought in massive profits for Netflix. Has been one of their most popular show for a very long time, over a decade. It gets streamed over and over and over again, and I see almost none of the revenue that comes into that.
All right, so that is what he has said. As an actor that was on Gilmore Girls, which was licensed by Netflix, he does not see any revenue regarding that licensing agreement, and that is not that's not wrong. However, the deal between Warner Brothers and Netflix for that show is that Warner Brothers has to pay residuals based on their licensing out agreements or broadcasting. So a lot of people have been conflating Sean Gunn's words here as if Netflix owes him money because they're airing Gilmore Girls. No, I mean, if Gilmore Girls were a produced show by Netflix wholly and distributed out, then Netflix would, under the minimum basic agreements that SAG-AFTRA has, they would be responsible to pay residuals based on whatever aggregate they have negotiated. But here's the funny thing with regards to that. So Warner Brothers takes their old show Gilmore Girls, they licenses out to Netflix, and whatever Netflix pays Warner Brothers, they break up accordingly to meet certain residual requirements that the actors have signed, and then the rest for the expenses regarding the initial show. So here's something that's kind of funny. Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, all at the time when Netflix was the dominating streaming, they made these deals. And and it wasn't until a few years into those deals did those studios realize that they're getting ripped off. Because again, Netflix's only source of income is the subscriber. And again, those dollars are kind of static. You can only grow so much until you hit every single person on the planet that has a subscription service. And then where do you go from there? So all of the revenue that Netflix would gain would be through subscribers and through loans. And that forces them to have limited payback with regards to what they license. So what those studios were realizing is that, hey, if we're licensing this show out to Netflix and we're making millions of dollars off of that, but we're not actually really getting the full value of that money, because Netflix is determining what they spend and they have that massive amount of subscribers, they realize that they're not making as much money as they would with the network broadcast model. And instead, very much like Hollywood, instead of actually contesting it against Netflix, they decided, hey, why don't we just do it for ourselves? I mean, that's kind of the weird thinking of it. Instead of saying, hey, Netflix, we think that your streaming service should go towards a network model so that we can maximize our profits with the content that we're providing you through distribution and streaming, they said, no, you know what? Let's do that on our end, and let's figure out that model for ourselves, and then make our own new broadcasting system where we can retain more of the profit for what we've made in the past or our back catalog, and allow for more convenience to our customers. And now we've gotten into this situation where, let's say hypothetically in a few years, Max decides to broadcast Gilmore Girls. Well, if that is, and if they're doing it with an ad-based model, they'd be required to disclose those numbers and the talent involved with that should be getting fair residuals for this, because it is part of work that has been scaled to be redistributed over and over again. And if it keeps on making money in some regards, the deal with talent, be it actors, writers, directors, and certain people who have negotiated those contracts, should be getting part of that compensation. That is the principal rule. But what we have now is a situation where we have a whole bunch of little Netflix models throughout the studio system, and the transparency is not really there. And the actors and writers are first and foremost requesting for that transparency. They're also asking for some other things, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't. It's irrelevant in that point, but it is there. Excuse me. So that is the mere fact of the matter, is that the studios realize that even though they were getting some advantages with Netflix with regards to the big payment to broadcast their shows, they felt that they would be able to get way more profit doing that themselves and keep more of it for their back catalog. Now to go on, because Sean Gunn had a response for this, and one I'll be happy to share in a moment. Bear with me, please. He goes on to further elaborate on this so that you can get some more information. But at the same time, it also proves how behind the times a lot of people in Hollywood are, and it's fair for them to be, because they're so concerned about getting their next job. They don't often get a chance to see how that job plays out. So let's go to this latest video with Sean Gunn and hear what he has to say here.
Hey, I just tweeted about this, but I thought I'd...
Of course. Let's try that again. Or did he take it down? Hold on. Let's see. Sorry about that, guys. Okay.
Yeah, I just tweeted.
All right. Looks like I got it resolved. All right, let's try.
About this, but I thought I'd do this video to clear some things up. I did an interview.
Oh, come on. Oh, I guess it doesn't want to do it.
Reporter, and they took that interview down because apparently I didn't note that that residuals aren't paid by Netflix, but that they're actually paid by the production company, Warner Brothers. Okay, first of all, I never used the word residuals in my interview, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that the whole point of my interview is that Netflix doesn't pay residuals to the actors. So there's no sharing in the success of a show with Netflix. It's true that they pay a licensing fee to Warner Brothers, and that Warner Brothers then pays residuals from that licensing fee, which is a very small amount, particularly for a show that's been off the air for a long time. But when the show is a huge success and they generate millions of dollars of profits for Netflix, we don't share in any of that.
I mean, I guess this is helping me a little bit break it up in case there's some sort of flagging issues, but sorry for some of the staggering parts there. But yes, so yes, Sean Gunn confirms that which, money goes from the distributor to the production company and then is allocated according to the players involved, working on the original property.
In large part because there's no transparency with their numbers, but really this is about fairness for everybody, and we just want to make sure that we have a fair deal. If it shows a success, we should participate in that. That seems totally reasonable. I think anybody can relate to it. But Hollywood Reporter, if you want to reach out to me, I'm here to talk anytime. But I think that interview should go back up. Peace, everybody.
All right. So that was Sean Gunn giving some more information regarding that. So that's kind of the issues that are at hand here. That is apparently for him, that is the structure. I think actors like Sean and many others are, I would say, 6 years too late on this talking point, which is unfortunately. which is unfortunate. But again, better late than never. And ideally, this could be a really good movement for talent in regards to transparency and movement on how these deals can be renegotiated. Because again, like Robert Meyer Burnett says, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And for a long time, not every talent out there has been getting the best people to negotiate for them. Not the unions themselves have been doing the best they can with regards to negotiating deals, but unfortunately, they don't always get everything that they want, and that's just the nature of the game. This is not the first time they've had issues with digital media and digital broadcasting. There of course was the the strike from 2007-08 for the WGA, when it came down to the fact that because this new media existed and there was no frame of reference to how it would work, they tried to use that unpredictable and uncertainty perspective to warrant not negotiating or figuring out what is in the best interest of the people that made the product that the studios were distributing. Unfortunately, those types of claims don't hold water much, especially after we've gone through similar models when it came to rebroadcasting and syndication. So that is kind of a straw man argument that the studios make. Now, the other part too, and I know some actors are saying, oh, it's unfair that a studio exec makes 20 times or 100 times or 400 times what an actor makes. I don't 100% agree with that. I only agree that if the studio execs or the heads are making that much and then they're claiming poverty, that's when you have to raise an eyebrow and maybe ask a question. Is that, oh, if you are making, say, $26 million a year on your normal salary, and then you're giving yourself a bonus of $100 million a year, and then you're saying, oh, we cannot pay the actors, writers, and directors that we hire a wage that balances out with or combats inflation, that raises a question. Because again, they're not paying all 170,000 people in the industry. They're paying a fraction of that works specifically for them. So this isn't the same as trying to equate it with regards to like the Walmart controversy that was 4 or 5 years ago, or stuff with regards to Amazon. This is different because, again, you have a bunch of big players in the studios. They take out business loans to fund their projects. And sometimes the people that take out those loans take home more than those that they want to pay, because either the board says that that's what they want, or that's just part of the deal that was negotiated. And I think, if you want more, you got to negotiate more. And that is kind of what SAG-AFTRA and WGA is trying to do here. They're trying to negotiate more. And I don't begrudge them for wanting that. The other aspect too is that the reason we have these two unions specifically in the industry is because it's trying to be more of a reliable form of income. And when you have certain practices where you're reducing episode orders, inflating budgets on feature films for tent poles, and then, not really having much of a future distribution model for them, that kind of hurts what's going on with making this industry more stable. At the peak of television and film, when you look at, say, the 80s, you would have 26 episode orders between half-hour and hour-long shows. You would then have home video. You then have what we called window distribution. So your first window would be your television broadcast with regards to feature films, followed by your secondary window, which would be maybe cable access. And then you'd have home video release, which would be VHS, later incorporating into Laserdisc, then DVD, then Blu-ray. And as those windows and outlets were consolidated and then replaced by streaming, you've now reduced the amount of options for getting revenue off of this scalable product. And as a result of that, you can justify, well, we've killed our own business, so we're going to hold on to as much money as we can to use it as collateral to get more money to pay for more things. And I don't know if it's really the best method of business personally, but it is what has happened right now. And the people are justifiably upset. So I'm going to take a little break there, see what you guys are saying in the chat. Do have a couple of questions and some super chats. So thank you so much for those. So let's take a look and see what we got here. All right. So we have Shield Wall of Dragons. Question: is there any reciprocity agreement for the SAG and writers to state that one will not end the strike until both have what they want, or will SAG go back to work if they get what they want? Well, that's a great question. In regards to each union, both of them want to work. And if the SAG gets a deal prior to the WGA and it's a good deal, the WGA will support them. And in turn, SAG will still support the WGA until they get a good deal as well. There is a little bit of not a little bit. There is camaraderie between the unions, even with the DGA right now. A lot of the members have stood by the WGA and now the actors, because all three of them need each other. And they're not, I mean, it'd be bad form to try and put each other at odds. I'm just going to put that out there. Bear with me 1 second. Someone has sent me a text. Let's see who it is. Okay, no worries. Sorry, just business as it is. I apologize to that. But no, listen, I think some people might find that to be a good plan, but now it looks to me like a strategy of that nature would be a consolidation of those two unions, which might complicate things. But I think what will end up happening is that if either union does get a deal before the other, work still can't be done. And so you're still going to have them standing in solidarity with whoever is remaining on strike. And I think that is fair, and what needs to be, I think, don't have to go any further at this point, but maybe who knows what will happen in the future. But I think at this point they're pretty good there. But great question. Thank you, Shield Wall of Dragons. Oops. All right. Next we have Scott Westerbrook with a $5 super sticker, which is the Keep It Up pair. Thank you so much for that, Scott. Much appreciated. We have Cezorjan says for 20. Wow, thank you so much for that. Is SAG WGA concerned about the optics that the average Joe will think the guilds is a bunch of rich elitist snobs and see the strike as a way to thin the herd? Unions like mine are seen more as blue collar workers. That is fair. You know what the sad part is that, again, the way marketing and the way popularity with television shows works out is that audiences don't actually see how many people are actually involved in this. So again, there's according to SAG-AFTRA, there's around 170,000 members that are not all working. That's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that that generally you don't know about, and basically because they're not big names. Only a very small percentage of people, actors in the industry, also manage to land, say, the hyphenate of a producer. And that usually comes by way of the fact that their name is marketable. So they can either facilitate money to fund the project that they're working on, or, and in some cases, like for instance, you have Robert Downey Jr., Will Ferrell, you have Scarlett Johansson, and Jennifer Lawrence. They have their own little production entities, and those people that work for them go out and find scripts for them to attach themselves to. So they'll use a little bit of their own personal money to start up the base production and then shop it around with to studios and other people to try and get the rest of the funding so they can put it into production and distribute it outward. Of the 170,000 SAG members, very few of them can actually do that. The vast majority don't. And as I said at the start of the show, The vast majority of them don't always reach the minimum threshold of work that allows them to claim the benefits that the union provides them. The threshold is a little over $26,000 a year. And I think there are some stipulations if you're over the age of 65 and still a working actor, but that's not a lot. That is a minimum wage job, essentially. And that does not include getting residuals. Residuals is apparently a side part of that. So if you do one job and you're lucky and you only get paid maybe $12,000 a year, yet for some reason of all the work that you've done up to that point, your residuals allow you to have a fair amount of yearly income, say $30,000. The union does not provide health benefits for that or any other benefits for that, as far as I know, and I could be wrong. So if there are any actors out there listening to this and I'm getting something wrong, please let me know in the chat or leave a comment. I'm happy to get that corrected for another live stream or in the comments as well, because I think it's very important that we get there. But it's my understanding that they don't always get that on the residual side of things. And I believe that is because the AMPTP had a couple of agreement plans during the previous negotiations, and I think they ended up losing one of them as a result. And I think that secondary plan maybe allowed for residuals to contribute to the health benefits. But again, I really wish I had more information on that. I have reached out to some of my actor colleagues. They have not gotten back to me in time for this show, but hopefully I will get some information from them to share with you all, because I think as glamorous as this job is for the people at the top, for the rest, it is a working, an average kind of job, not necessarily blue collar to some degree with regards to physical labor like manufacturing or mining or construction or tailoring, anything of that nature. And I completely understand, but it is a labor job, and it does something that's facilitates a need with society, and that is sometimes we need to entertain. Sometimes we need to see what we're doing this for, and that is the value that they bring. And yeah, it can be very fun, and there are some people who take it way too seriously when they shouldn't, and that's just the nature of the game. And I think if we got a little bit less serious with regards to the craft and appreciated it for the fun and benefits that it brings, I think there would probably be a less of a divide socially between the audiences and the talent. But that also comes into to effect with the industry itself kind of likes to stroke the egos of those that can make them money. And if that ego is stroked long enough and hard enough, no puns intended, it will go to their heads. God, lots of innuendo here. It will go to their heads, and it will change their personality as a result. So thank you for that, Sajorjan. Much appreciated. Good question. And you know what? I think it's only fair that more actors kind of speak out with regards to the joy of the job, but also remember to keep their head on their shoulders and not up in the clouds or up their rears. Angelo Frederick is here with 1850. Thank you so much. He says, good day, Script. Get a burger and Coke on me. Well, thank you, Angelo Frederick. In fact, you know what? I had my first soda in over a decade when I went with Paul Chato to see Sound of Freedom. We hit up a fast food joint, which I haven't done. I don't usually do. And yeah, we had some burgers and fries. It was nice. Andrew B. Versfeld said, I thought residuals were a percentage. So the more money the production company makes, the more the cast makes. That is usually part of the basic agreement, that there is a percentage to it. And that comes down based on technically with the old network model, it was based on ad revenues. So if it was a popular show running either on the first window of the network television or a second window through syndication, whatever ad revenues were generated from that would be sent to the production company, and then that would be allocated based on the percentage negotiated from those working involved. So yes, that would be the case. When it comes to something like Netflix, I believe, what was it? They spent $50 million to hold on to Friends for a few years. So that $50 million would then go to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers would allocate that to the people who negotiated for residuals. And I believe they would allocate it over the course of the years that Netflix had it, as opposed to one lump sum. And I think they do that for tax purposes. But again, unfortunately, I have not worked on a show that ever had a $50 million buyout for licensing to Netflix. So unfortunately, I don't have those details with me. But when it comes to that, yes, basically that would be the case. So we have, say, for Sean Gunn here over on his Gilmore Girls, he would get whatever Warner Brothers would issue him. And here's the other part too. Sometimes the checks won't stipulate exactly where that money came from. It would just be a standard residual check. It might be a collection of all the distribution methods, or they might do it individually. I'm certain you can all Google residual check images and see that some people have gotten checks for pennies, where the cost to print the check was more expensive than the check itself. And that's usually when you have a show that has been played for many, many, many years across many, many, many platforms, and its value has kind of decreased because everybody has seen it, and therefore there's not really interested in going back to it. So, so that's one aspect of it as well. But thanks, good question there, Andrew. We have the memes of destruction. Hey, memes, it's been a while. Glad to see you here. He says, "Hi, friends. Whatever you do, do it awesomely. Love, love, peace, heart." Well, thank you, memes. For those of you who don't know, the Memes of Destruction has been doing a One Punch Man workout for, I think, over a year and a half now. And it's been quite something to see. I've caught a number of his little videos over the last while, and I thought it's a fantastic journey. And he's also a very fun guy. So show him some love as well, if you so can. We also have Nick Allen for 10. Thank you so much. He says, if even an individual is willing to strike and then that spreads to many people, then there is a problem. There has to be. What is the problem? Fix it already. You know what? That's usually what it is. I had a person who commented on my Thursday video who had their objection to unions, and I completely understood that objection. But they also had some interesting points that usually get caught in the mix, and that is they were under the impression, and it has occurred in some cases, but not in all, but they were under the impression that a union kind of forms in a company when the company is actually doing badly. And that's not always the case. In fact, unions typically form when a company is doing so well, and it's not that profit or that reputation is not kind of encapsulating the people that helped facilitate that reputation, hence the workers. So if like I spent a few years of my youth living in Hamilton, which is known as Steel Town. And there were two prominent steel companies that kind of, paid for that town. They employed a lot of people there. One of them was very profitable, gave all of their employees benefits and profit sharing and reliable and competitive wages, but they weren't unionized. And unions did try to get into that company many times, but again, there's no reason for them. There's nothing the union could offer that they didn't already get. However, across the way, there's another steel company. We'll call them Company B. They were doing kind of poorly, and they were reducing hours, getting the same output of labor, and basically taking all the money for themselves at the top. Well, the union did get into that and tried to fix it, but it did not work out well. And the reason it didn't work out well is because that company in question was not well run to begin with. But they were netting some pretty significant profits up until that point. And when the union came in and then they stopped doing that, it kind of hurt it a little bit. Then it bounced back. And then the union did the dumbest thing ever, which is align itself with a political party. And then all things went to hell. So that's the other part too. Something to be cautious of. And this is something that's cautious of with any institution that requires representatives. And that is, don't elevate the representatives to the position of leader, and don't let the representatives dictate what you do. That is a basic principle with regards to essentially unions, governments, or anything of that like. It's basically, you have to remember who's the people in power, and it's always going to be you. It's not going to be the person you appoint to represent you. It's going to be you guys, and it always should be you guys. And that's what's going on here with SAG and ACTRA, is that they're the talent. They're the ones that have the ideas. They may not have the money to make it, but they have the ideas, and they enter into a symbiotic relationship with the people that do have the money to make it, in order for them to agree upon, putting it together, getting it out there, and sharing in any profits that are made. And in some cases, those deals have not been honored. In fact, more often than not, it has been the studios that have violated those deals, and not the people that work for them. This started back in the invention of television. When television became more popular, more affordable, and started entering the homes of millions of people around the world, studios started to license out their backlog of films on television. And because that technology didn't exist at the time when the contracts were initially made between the talent that made the product and the studios that funded it, the studios thought it was fair for them to reap all the benefits of that distribution model. And I would say that might be legally the case when it comes to the contract, but is it really ethical? Is it fair with regards to how that product would not have existed without the people that made it, including the studios? And if their agreement deal was, oh, we're going to put this in theaters, we're going to share part of the ticket sales with the people that worked on it. Now we're going to find a new model. We're going to put it on television, and we're not going to share part of the commercial ads running against it with the people that helped make it. And people felt that was wrong. And as a result, people got together and said, hey, we don't agree with this model. And if you're not willing to negotiate, we're not going to work for you guys anymore. And that's what I would call like a free market to a degree. Now, if I'm wrong in that idea, please let me know, and I'm happy to entertain any counter argument and update my points of view on that. But that's my understanding with it. And what ended up happening is that the unions formed, and they managed to broker better contracts. They managed to broker better benefits. And as the industry grew with television and film, the time spent working also grew. And now what we have here, and this is one of the major points between both SAG and the WGA, is that as we have more distribution models, we see that the studios are not wanting to produce more content, or at least the frequency of the content is high, but how much going into it is low. So we're getting, in 2022, we got 599 original new series that were produced and released, but not all of them were 26 episodes. Some of them were 6, 8, 10, 13. That seems very low for that. And I think because it's very low, and because you have these gaps in between work, it doesn't make the creative world very sustainable, unfortunately. So that's the other part too. Excuse me. But thank you for that, Nick Allen. I hope you understand the problem. Like, the way that I would look at this solution is basically take a look at a network model, have full disclosure and transparency on the numbers, which makes the industry a bit more of a merit-based, because now you have the audience participating in what shows are renewed and continue and what don't, which is just like how network television worked with regards to Nielsen ratings. People knew what was popular, people watched what they liked, and they supported it, and they spread the word about it. It became water cooler shows, people that talked about the show at the water cooler at work. When the internet came, there was then shows that were being discussed on message boards and chat rooms. You got to get the audience involved. And when you hide those numbers on streaming, the audience involvement is a lot harder to track. And as a result, you don't get honest data, and you don't get good shows. And that's kind of what we've seen it. So there we go. We have Cryam for 10. Thank you, Cryam. Question: you mentioned paraphrasing. In other streams, part of the quality issue is interference and directives from management. Any negotiations going on that consumers will support, or would you propose? That's a really good question, Cryam. So yeah, that's the tricky part of this industry is that a lot of people get work based on assignments. So studio will have an IP that they want to adapt and distribute, and they will put feelers out to the creatives involved to give them pitches. And the best pitch that they like, they'll sign on. And then from there, they will dictate from that pitch the direction and the things that they want in that project. And if you are a writer on that, you are free to refuse and lose the job, and they'll go to someone else, or you can bite the bullet and try and make it work. I don't know if there's anything on the negotiating side of things where you could give the creative more power with regards to their own IP, because that could be dangerous, because what happens if you get some of the people that have a very controversial ideology that want to control the IP from, say, the writer to the studio, as opposed to what's happening now, which is the studio to the writer. I don't think there's a win-win scenario in that aspect, because what we have right now is we have a bunch of business-minded executives who like the industry as much as, say, the average person, but that's not good enough when you're dealing in this industry. You have to love it, you have to live it and breathe it and understand it at a level that is beyond the audience, and the reason it has to be beyond the audience is so you can best bring in the audience. If you can understand the core of what entertainment is, you have a better chance of being able to make it as the most appealing it can be for your general audience. And unfortunately, we just don't have enough people in that world anymore. We have the ones that are taking low-hanging, easy-to-find data and manipulating it to fit a property where it doesn't, or they're getting fed in a wrong data from the people that will eventually become executives, that starting out as readers or what have you, because they have their own perspective on how the world and society should work, and they don't and again, it manipulates the perspective and direction of where things are going. So that's it. I think the best aspect, and I'm always looking for more options, because again, I can't think of everything. I try, I really do, but I can't, because I only have my own experiences, and the little bits of stories I can get from colleagues and friends with their experiences, and experiences that you guys have out there in the chat. Again, it's good data, but it's also limited. But if there is another way to do it where you can kind of keep the value and the quality consistent, I am all for that. But yeah, interference and directives from management, that's a little bit tricky. We already had a thing similar to that with the packaging deals. This is where agents would eventually become the bosses of the people they represent. So that's a conflict of interest, in my opinion, and I've suffered from that. I lost a potential television show that I would have I would have been paired with an established showrunner to learn how to be a showrunner while that went on. But the numbers with regards to how much the studio I was working with, the production company I was working with, was able to spend, and how much was going to my agent and management at the time because of the packaging deal, did not make it lucrative enough for them to pull the trigger and invest in, specifically for that. And that is why a lot of talent fired their management and agents a few years back. And it wasn't a great situation, but it's basically being that it's about the relationship, especially when you're dealing with representative institutions. the representative is supposed to work for you, not the other way around. And I think that's a relationship that some groups out there are trying to and have been trying to destabilize since the idea of representation has been thrown around. And I'm talking about, proper representation, not the superficial representation that has been injected and done so lazily in our entertainment. Because I'm telling you right now, like, if you want to have some of these profiles, essentially, that have been thrown out there, I would say give it your all to trying to make them fun, accessible, and interesting to watch, and people will watch it. But it hasn't been fun, accessible, or interesting. It's actually been kind of patronizing and insulting. And if I were in any one of those groups that's being, propelled to the stage, I'd be highly offended that they think so little of me, because that's how I see it from my perspective. I think that the people that are writing some of the stuff think so little of the people they claim they want to represent. Here we go. So 6 asks, can the striking actors, writers collect unemployment? How is it determined who walks the picket line? Is it voluntary? Do you think the big name actors walking it are just virtue signaling? Great set of questions, 6. Thank you so much for the 10. So here's the issue with unemployment. You cannot collect unemployment if work is available. And when you're striking, you're refusing to work, but it doesn't mean work isn't available. So that's the conflict there. So unfortunately, no, actors and writers are unable to collect unemployment in that regard. With regard to how it is determined who walks the picket line, union captains reach out to the people that they cover within a district, as my understanding, or at least a kind of like a Rolodex, a digital Rolodex of sorts of actors that they are charged with informing and conveying and collecting information from. So that is what they do. They schedule out who's to picket where they can based on where they lived and how they can do that. And it's organized. Some of them, they pick it for maybe an hour out of one studio, then they'll take a break, go to another studio, pick it there for an hour or two, and they'll be moved around. And they organize it as best they can. In fact, a couple actor friends this morning who I wanted to bring on the show, unfortunately couldn't because they're picketing and they also have to watch their phone data because otherwise they'd be streaming it. But again, they're not making any money. And, when you stream from your phone, the data usage can run up pretty quickly. But now, with regards to, do I think the big name actors are walking it are just virtual signaling? I'm certain there are some, but again, a lot of the big name actors still vividly remember when they weren't big name actors. Except for maybe Tom Cruise. I don't know if he still remembers when he was just starting out. He's been pretty big for 30 odd years. But again, he's also pretty much in touch with audiences, and I think he'll be supportive of that. If he's not, that'd be kind of weird. But we'll have to wait and see. But I'm certain there are some actors that are just virtue signaling that are fine. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt for now until they change it for us. And let's focus it on one at a time as opposed to painting with broad strokes, because you never know. There's always actors out there that say something clever, smart, or have their heads on right, and there's no reason to not support them just because some of their cohorts are acting foolish. The memes of destruction for $4.99. Again, thank you, memes, so much appreciated. If that's the case, why didn't we see the EU? Well, the EU comes with its own form of complications. Oops, sorry. I can only imagine that when it came to studios, the EU has been so long established and the core audience knows it all that they felt like they could go somewhere else and that they wanted to. They wanted to leave things a surprise. I'm mixed on that because, it doesn't have to be that way. the way that the EU worked to some degree is that they had a whole set of periods that kind of occupied the years in between Return of the Jedi and now. Like they had a 30-year span. They also went way ahead in the future where they had the descendants of some of these characters. And they've also gone way in the past. I don't know why they wanted to get rid of that. Part of it, I suspect, has to do with Disney not wanting to honor the contracts that Lucas had with the books with regards to royalties, reprints, and redistribution. That did change because, again, when they're now slapped with the legends on top of those book covers, that's under a new contract that's negotiated with the representatives of those writers. And I would not be surprised to find out that that contract is less lucrative than what it was prior. And I think that might be one of the reasons why they did that. I can only speculate at this point, but that's what I would assume. So thank you so much for that, memes. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Let me scroll up, get it a little bit more in order here. I think Shanatsky had something to say. Let me see if it'll let me catch that out there. Okay. Here we go. Okay, here we are. Here we go. So Shanatsky, hi. Good to see you, sir. Says, are actors allowed to work on non-struck company projects, i.e. independents? If the project is independently made, then sold to a studio at a later date, is that an issue? No, as I covered earlier, the SAG-AFTRA agreement has allowed actors to work for independent studios on an interim basis. So it has to meet all these qualifiers. They are apparently a case-by-case issue. And if that project is later purchased by a studio for distribution, that will not be in conflict because the interim contract still has to be honored with that sale. And most likely in the case, by the time that independent project is ready to go for release, this strike will most likely be resolved, and that shouldn't be an issue. Excuse me. We also have Six who says retail sucks. Yes, working retail is not always the best. Some people have a knack for it and love it, but I know a lot of people that don't. Daniel Hall says, what an actor doesn't know how things work? A lot of actors don't know how things work. That's why they have agents and managers to do that for them. So that's, I mean, listen, that's their own prerogative. I always try to find out as much as I can when I had my agents, because right now I'm a free agent as a screenwriter. I am looking for representation. So if you are a young and hungry agent out there, or maybe you're a veteran agent that wants someone with some chutzpah, you are welcome to reach out to me and we can talk. I can share with you some stuff if you so wish. But yes, not a whole lot of talent has the time to do so. Sadly, this is something I brought up with some of my actor friends every once in a while when they work on things. I have an actor friend that worked on the Umbrella Academy for Netflix, and yes, they don't get great residuals. I think the highest they got was maybe $48. Excuse me. So yeah, and that's for Netflix. I mean, Netflix made Umbrella Academy. I don't think it was made by another studio and then sold to Netflix, but I could be wrong there. Sorry. Rust in Peace basically says, yes, the viewing figures on streaming is not very transparent. No, it is not. And it's to the detriment here. Like, here's the thing that's kind of interesting. Disney Plus, Paramount, Warner Brothers, they could crush Netflix in, say, 5 to 10 years. They just had commercial ads. I know you're going to have a bunch of stubborn people that are not going to go over there, which is fine. Completely understand. I would be stubborn too. I used to be very stubborn back when in the dawn of the internet age of television, where I could see television shows without commercials. But after a while, I realized, I have no idea what's being sold out there anymore. Like sometimes I'll have to. I don't like the idea of only being shown things when I used to go on Facebook. I haven't been on there for almost 10 years now. Or basically just Googling a random question of like something that I might need. And here's the other part too. I miss commercials that advertise other shows and movies that I might not have normally heard about. When you're dealing with streaming, you have and no commercial ads, you kind of get a narrower perspective on the competition that's around that. I mean, I remember just a channel surfing and seeing a commercial for My Name is Earl, which is a hysterical show. And if we're on streaming, you'll never get a commercial for something like that. You'll never knew it existed. In fact, we got 599 new shows last year. The majority of them I didn't know existed, and I had to actually do some digging in that. And when I made that question to people on my Tuesday stream and even on Midnight Sedge and After Dark and a bunch of other streams, they didn't know either. And I think that's a problem. I think it's great for an audience to see what else is out there in the off chance that they find a hidden gem. And it grows in popularity. And you get that when you have streaming become more transparent and adopting a model that is not only lucrative for the people making the show, but advertises other things that in a streaming world, the competition is not so narrow. It's actually more friendly and useful. Because as I said, if two studios drop 2 hit shows in the same month, week by week episodes, they don't have to compete for viewers at a specific time slot. They could get the same viewers on both, in which case, if they're 2 really good shows and they're doing really well, the audience wins and the studio wins, and neither show is sacrificed by the success of the other. It's kind of a better form of egalitarianism. I think it's great. I mean, how awesome would it be if you had streaming in the 60s that was also an on-demand type of thing, and you had Star Trek where the fans would watch every episode and they wouldn't have to decide what's to watch its competitive hour at the same time, which I forget what it was at that period, because 1, I didn't exist, and 2, scheduling charts are not easy to find back in those days. At least they haven't. I might not be searching properly when I'm looking for it. And I don't have any old classic TV guys, unlike my friend Paul Chato does. But you could imagine that if people are able to tune into Star Trek in the 60s on an on-demand streaming model with ads, it probably wouldn't have been canceled after the first season and then renewed for a second and then canceled again for the third season. It might have kept on going because there was an audience there to watch it all the time. And a lot of other good shows could have been in the same realm. But it's just not. It just wasn't the case with broadcast television because you had a time slot. People had to schedule what they were doing in the evenings after work around that. And they had to pick, well, what show do they want to watch? Now you have this model where you can watch anything at any time, and it still can be lucrative for the people that made the show. And I see that as a really good and positive upgrade. The fact that the studios haven't figured that out, or if they have and they're just ignoring it, is troublesome for me. What your first thought has asked Script Doctor, what do you know about the Ron Perlman video? I don't know anything about the Ron Perlman video. I'm sorry, I'm not informed on that. I haven't followed Ron Perlman before. All I know about him really is he's married to Dana Delaney. And he played Hellboy and a bunch of character actors. It has been a character actor for quite a long time. We have Extender who asks a great question. Because the studios are very resistant to releasing viewership numbers, how might studios permit residual payouts without publicly releasing minutes watched? That's a good question. Well, here's the other part too. There could be a contract stipulation where they can privately release those numbers to all parties involved in the production, and have a lifetime form of an NDA or a disclosure agreement saying that they cannot publicly state that. But at the same time, why would you want to do that? I think if you have a number one hit show and you can prove it's a number one hit show, that's all the better to the company that made it. I don't know why you want to hide the numbers unless they're embarrassing. And if they are embarrassing, yet you're still pulling in some decent revenue, that is something of controversy. That's one of the arguments from both SAG and WGA. Rust in Peace says some of these companies have stuck to just making the shows or films and licensing. They would have made more money. If they didn't get into the streaming stuff, they would have definitely spent less money, but we are not 100% sure if they would make more money because, again, as what I showed with the Sean Gunn video, it seems to be more that when Warner Brothers and other studios were licensing their shows to Netflix for a big chunk of the payout, when they did the math over the years, they realized that they were probably not making as much money as they were on syndication and rebroadcast. And that's why they felt like if they made their own version of Netflix, they'd be making a lot more money. And I think that might prove to be wrong. However, because they've already built the infrastructure, if they modified it to a network model, I think they would kind of crush Netflix to a degree, especially if they're able to tier it out to a point where it's very, very affordable with commercial ads. And then you have tiers that have either no commercial ads or reduced ads or what have you, kind of like Peacock. Like Peacock actually has the smart model. The problem is it's Comcast and NBC, and they've been pretty lousy most of the time the last 20 years. So with regards to what they put out there. And also the advertising of it, it's not well, they don't advertise anymore. Nobody does. I mean, that's been my crazy thing. I pitched a great science fiction, low budget science fiction thing, and all I get is from marketing, we don't know how to sell this. And never seen a producer so embarrassed in a room when they heard that, because he felt like he liked the lemming. But no, it was just a bad experience. Unfortunately, not the last. Darth Plato says, hard to have your way sometimes by just being honest. Yeah, it is. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm just catching up with you guys. So happy for all of you hanging out with me for the last hour addressing this. Daniel Hall says the 07-08 strike, the one the Scab Klutzman worked through, and look at where Trek is now. Yeah. Dude, you're preaching to the choir here. The fact that he was able to remain, I was not happy with that. It was very shortly after that strike that I became an associate member of the WGA, and not a lot of people spoke out against him because he is best buddies with J.J. Abrams, who was the hot director at the time. And I think it showed I think it was very poor. I think it was very, very poor form for the WGA acquiesce to that. Okay, let's see here. All right, let's see. Oh, hey, we have Tomby in the chat. Says, hey, hail script, chat, and mods. Well, thank you so much, Tomby. Hail to you, sir. Glad to see you. Hope you're doing well. Mihan is here. It says, Script Doctor, just saw Elemental and thought it was all right. Question is, do voice actors have the same residual problems? Depends on which guild they're in. I know there's a voice actor guild for doing dubs and working with animation and anime. Sadly, I don't have a whole lot of experience there, so I wish I had some informations for you on that. But if they are SAG members, yes, they will have. Again, it's based on what they negotiate in contract and the distribution with regards to those cartoons. Who would be a good person to ask that is generally responds to that? Keith David is a really versatile voice actor. I wonder if I don't know if he responds much. He'd be good to hit up, but reach out to some of your favorite voice actors on social media. Have them speak out on this thing, because they listen. They're in the thick of it more so than I am. I'm more on the writing side of stuff, so that's a little bit out of my purview. But it is something I would love to learn more about, especially considering that I do have a couple of cartoon shows that I really, really want to make once this strike is over. And hopefully I can find the right people afterwards that would be down to producing it. I don't think I could produce it myself, because animation is really, really expensive when you get started. And yeah, but maybe we'll see what happens as time goes on. We have Saras. Hello, Saras. Nice to see you. Says, I hope this means that the show I care about, like Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel, can continue production and marketing, considering that one of them is fully indie on YouTube while the other is on streaming. Well, streaming is part of the struck companies, so that's going to be difficult. Depends on which streaming service they're on. But again, if they are part of fully independent and those indies have signed an interim contract that has been reviewed and accepted by the unions, then it would be okay. And then I don't see there are any problems with that. So hopefully you don't miss out on that type of entertainment. So let's cross fingers, see if they manage to get a deal there. Shinatsky asks a great question. Why do actors who are so obsessed with their image not see how they look to Joe Q? You'd think writers and actors together would be better at swaying people. Again, when you start hitting a certain threshold, a bubble forms around you, a protective bubble. And they think it's in the best interest of the talent to not upset them. And I've never liked that personally. I have always been kind of part of a group of people that are like, listen, we want to get better, so please criticize us. And if you're going to criticize us, don't end it with "it sucks." Like, go nitpick if you can. Please do whatever you can. We're trying to learn. We're trying to make things better. And for actors, a lot of them don't have systems that help them out that way, that try to make them better. They just try to say, okay, you've hit your end game point. You are now perfect. You're the right age. You got the right look. You got the right figure, and you know how to act. So boom, we're just going to try and hold on to this, keep you in a form of arrested development. You're never going to grow. Whereas you get someone like Meryl Streep, who always grows, always is trying to learn something new. Even Al Pacino, he still goes to acting lessons. He also has to do any job he can because of some of his alimony payments. But regardless, those are a couple actors that are trying to get better. But at the same time, you spend so much of your time trying to find work that you don't always get the opportunity to interact with your audience. And that's the trade-off at this point. We got Mark Cote, who says, ACTRA standing in solidarity with SAG-AFTRA. Not that means much to our American cousins, but here we are. Yes, they are. It's a number of U.S. productions that are shot in Canada with a number of actors, part of ACTRA, are not getting all of that work. However, ACTRA did make a deal with the AMPTP, if I'm not mistaken, prior to the SAG negotiations. So, but I'm glad that they're standing in solidarity. So, I mean, listen, if the studios can get away with something at the expense of of one union, they'll do it to all of them. It's just like when you work in a business that says, oh, we're going to reduce hours, but you still have to do the same amount of work. But don't worry, once things get better economically, we'll bring those hours back. They never bring those hours back. I know this. My girlfriend has informed me this many times with the clients that she represents for her job. They cut hours and they never come back, and it's just the way it is. Andrew B. Versfeld says, so that's why every actor seems to have a producer credit in the films they star in these days. Well, not every actor, just the ones you've heard of. Just the ones you've heard of. If they're bankable, if they're name recognition, they can get a producer credit either to gain funding, or they're a producer because they found the script and they brought it to a studio for investment and production. Again, you can check out IMDb, look at any actors there. Go to your hit show, take a look at some of the very down the list actors and see how often they've been a producer on something that you've heard of, or producer at all, and you'll find the vast majority do not have a producer credit on things. 6 asks, what kind of pop did you have? I had a Barks root beer with Paul Chateau. It was good. I haven't been able to find it in can form or bottle form at stores in a very, very long time. But yeah, that's one of my favorite sodas if I'm going to have a soda. But I don't drink soda much. I have 2 things I drink: water and chocolate milk on occasion, because I need dairy. If I don't have dairy, I don't heal. All right. Let's see if we can catch up here. Shanotsky has a question. Independent productions are still okay for people to act in. What if an independent production gets bought by a struck studio and is now improper? Again, the production, the interim agreement should cover that. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't qualify as an interim agreement, and it cannot be using union members in their project. All right. Michael Dietrich says, an individual trying to negotiate or survive with a corporation is at the mercy of management. If management is fair, things tend to work out. If corporate management is corrupt, you'll need a union. In some cases, yes, that is that's usually how. I mean, that's the ideal outcome or the goal for that. It doesn't always work in the case. In a perfect world, there wouldn't be a problem, and there wouldn't even need to be unions. But that is not our world. We live in a world, a universe, if you will, that doesn't care about us. So we have to care a little bit about each other, of course. Bad Take Bojan is here. Hello, Tina. Good to see you. Says, agree that union leaders shouldn't lead for nefarious reasons or become political. I saw my unionized father desperately fight for a 15-cent raise every year while he paid quadruple that in union dues. Oh, don't get me started on union dues, especially when they're going to people that aren't really part of the industry. When I was in high school, we learned history with regard to unions, and the initial premise for the union dues, according to our history teacher in the books that we read, was that union dues were collected in the case that legal action would have to be taken. So those union dues would be used to retain a lawyer or legal team and take the company to court. I don't know if that still holds up today with a bunch of other unions. With the WGA, I have asked questions with regards to that, and I never get a solid answer. As in, it goes to pay for other things. I'm like, I would like it list by list items because it is my money, at this point. But ideally, it shouldn't be for that. I think I've seen for the medical industry, not all of them, of course, but my sister who works in the medical field right now, she knows that some of the union dues that she pays into goes for union meetings and parties and mixers and things of that nature to discuss what they want to do. It's not great. Like, not a lot of people like that, and they have brought up about not having it spent on that, but it is what it is. Excuse me. I'm going to sneeze for a second, so let me just mute. Oh, there we go. Much better. Sorry about that, guys. We got Liam J.A. Quigley says, "Hey, Script, Hollywood is clearly going through a shakeup. What do you think the industry will look like in the next 10 years? Will there be a film renaissance, or will it remain what it is today?" Well, we are long overdue for a film renaissance. I think that has to do with the fact that some of the corporatization of the studios has had used a methodology of resisting new talent for whatever reasons they have, because we haven't really had any sort of new shakeup or change in the people that make movies as significantly as we had in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. In the early 2000s, we basically have gotten Christopher Nolan, and that's about it. That's all I can think of right now. I can't think of any other directors that kind of really stood out that has tried to stand shoulder to shoulder with some of the greats in previous generations. The Russo brothers got pretty close, but I don't think they're there yet. I think they're kind of stumbling. Edgar Wright, maybe I would say he's not huge budget anymore, but he's a prominent one, but he got started a little bit earlier than this generation. But yeah, it's because kind of few and far between. I think it's really unfortunate. As for what it'll look like, ideally, what I would really like to see, I would like theaters to have a stronger rebound. I would like to see more creative, low, mid-budget studio films. Something that kind of creates a very kind of like a buffet style of different types of genres and stories. We've had one studio dictate too much of the entertainment. A studio that never should have had the amount of power and influence it did, but they decided to buy Lucasfilm and Marvel, and they really did steer the industry in a direction that was antithetical to what it did for years and how it ended up booming. But that's the case as it is. I can only hope that the theaters are more robust in the future with the types of films that are made, more original specs being done, more IPs being invested in and tested with the audience. And the ones audiences like and support should, of course, flourish. And the ones that don't, well, I appreciate anyone that swings for the fences trying to generate a new IP. And you should also appreciate the people that put money behind it. Even if it wasn't to your liking, or it stunk or was silly or what have you, got to appreciate the effort to a degree. You don't have to like it, but you can always appreciate the effort that they're trying to say, hey, we're doing something new. As for streaming, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it will eventually have to go to an ad-based support model. It's the only way it can work because, again, even the population is growing. The population that's going to be employed and having money and want to spend that on a streaming service is going to level out. It's going to happen. And once it levels out, you either have to readjust your spending to allow that leveled out income to be profitable, or you have to go to an ad-based thing where popularity dictates how much extra money you can make in addition to a minimum subscription fee. And if they did both, they would then maximize their profits and have enough liquidity and collateral to keep pumping out new content for everyone. And then as long as they also invest a little bit into showcasing people classic older stuff so that they have a broader palette of things, that will allow them to maintain monetization of all of their catalog. And I think that's a good thing. I think there's tons of, I don't know how many people out there want to see it, but I'm part of the minority, but I would really like to start seeing Gunsmoke on streaming again in an easier fashion than what it is now. sometimes I got to go through hoops just to find some episodes, and I don't even get to see them in proper episodic or like chronicle release order of release, like when they aired, even though they're episodic and they don't always kind of string together. I kind of like to watch things. I like to see the evolution of a show. For me, but that's for me. And who knows? There's probably thousands of other shows that people have forgotten that could get a new audience today. And why would you not want to try and make a little money off that if you own that show? That's just me. Okay, I appreciate you guys hanging in with me as I discuss this with you. Real Wade Nation Gaming Clip says, "Hey, Script, why do they do it now? Why not 2 or more years ago?" So negotiations are done every 3 years, and why they didn't bring this up 3 years ago, I think probably they were too busy or too preoccupied or too worried with regards to the pandemic. As for why they didn't bring this up 6 years ago, again, it's because they didn't always see the forest for the trees. Not everybody is fully aware of what's going on. Even myself, I'm certain there's a number of blind spots that I haven't picked up on yet regarding this. And once I do pick those up, they might change my opinion and ideas on how to solve that. But yes, it's done. Every 3 years, there's contract negotiations. Every 3 years, there's always potential for a strike. Ideally, you want to avoid that. But it is just what it is. We have Neil here who says, "Hey, Script, sorry I'm late." Don't apologize. This is a live stream, but it's also being recorded. It'll be on my YouTube channel, so you will be able to catch up with everything. There's no worries there, but glad to see you. Nice to see you covering the strike. Would you like to see John Carter tackled again sometime soon? I think in the right hands, it could have a lot of potential. Absolutely. My gosh. Yes, Princess of Mars would be a great series for them to do again and do it well. I think the initial one was okay. I don't think Taylor Kitsch is a leading man. He when I look at him, I'm reminded of the Klingon in Star Trek V that wants to battle Kirk. He's got the same kind of eyes, nose, and lips. He looks like he could play a really cool alien or villain or a supporting role. He doesn't have a leading man type of charm. But no, I thought that movie had a lot of potential. And yeah, I think there's a way to do it. When it comes to stuff like Princess of Mars and Conan and Solomon Kane and The Shadow and Doc Savage and stuff, I don't think feature films are the best medium for that, because these were essentially pulp novels. They were ongoing stories, episodic in nature in some regards. Some had a string line of continuity with them. And that is a great model already for a television series. And I think that's where it should go. I think that's the best thing. I was a big proponent when I was pitching stuff in 2009, 2010 of superheroes remaining only on the small screen. I don't think they should have ever been on the big screen. I think that was, I don't think that's best to their nature. I think you could tell a great set of stories over a 5 to 10 year period that would stand the test of time from some of your major comic book characters. I think trying to do that in film doesn't always work to its advantage, because you are not utilizing the time you have at its maximum. It takes 2 to 3 years to make a feature film. And, actors age. And they have a difficult time maintaining their physical appearance or their schedules, or they get popular, really popular, and they don't have the ability to do your movie again unless you pay them a obscenely large amount of money, which they have earned through their reputation and their performances. On a television series, on a well-structured one, well-budgeted one, creatively written one, in those 3 years, you get 3 seasons. You get a lot more content, a lot more bang for your dollar. And I think that's better for that type of audience, because those types of audiences that read those books, whether they're novels or comic books, it was a returning audience. It was coming back on a monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly cycle. It's coming back to these stories, to these characters, see what new adventures they're in. With a feature film, you can only focus on one adventure every couple of years. And when you try to expand that out to a feature film, you have to then be very particular about what stories you can do, and you might be able to do one really great story, but as a result, you leave by the wayside a whole bunch of other really great smaller stories. And yeah, that just seems like you're not taking advantage of the property to its fullest. And I think with television and serialized storytelling, you can get more from that. We got Darth Gutierrez. Love that name, man. He says, "Hail, Script Doctoral. Hail to you." The Introspect M says, "My Name is Earl was a great show." Dude, it was such a great show. One of my friends and colleagues had a fun take on My Name is Earl for another type of show that he wanted me to be staff on. Unfortunately, it's a brilliant concept, but it's kind of tricky to execute. And unfortunately, we're all on strike now, so we can't even pitch it any further. But man, one day I'll try and get him on the show, have him pitch it to you guys, see what you guys like. He's a little camera shy, more camera shy than I am, because I have an avatar. I don't think you even do an avatar stuff. Maybe I can get him to convince. Maybe I can convince him. I'll try, but yeah. 6 says, "I hear about shows from people in the chat. I'm constantly screenshotting recommendations. I do that too. In fact, I got a folder of it somewhere, and every once in a while I'll go to it. In fact, recently, last night, but talking with all of Mission Impossible and coming up there, I decided to go back and check out a film I hadn't seen since I was a kid, called Top Cappy. It's a 1964 thief thriller, and it was part of the inspiration for the Mission Impossible series that Desi Liu made for CBS. And it was a fun comedy. And so, yeah, if you want to see something, you know what, I might clip a section of that and put it on my Patreon for you guys to see, not just the inspiration for it on Mission Impossible for the series, but there is a scene that was definitely paid homage to in the Mission Impossible film. So I might clip that and put it on my Patreon for all of you. I can't put it on YouTube because I'll get struck, but definitely on Patreon. And because my Patreon has on the base tier, a 7-day free trial, you in the audience can check that out without having to sign up if that is not something of interest to you. I do not hold any ill will to those that are not interested. I'm happy to have that out for you all, if you so are. Let's see here. Joey is in the chat. He says, "Striking now might encourage using AI experimentation. It's a gamble if that lengthens or shortens the strike. I just wish they'd used it for proofreading." Yeah, I hear you. However, it's really funny. I've had a number of writer and actor friends recently ask, like, what is it? The Google AI, the ChatGPT, there's a Microsoft AI, all the same question, which was, what is better suited for AI? Is screenwriting or being an executive producer? And all of the responses are variation saying that AI would be far more effective as an executive producer than a creative, because executive producers have to take data collection to see what the market is like and determine what stories being pitched are best suited for that market trend. It's kind of funny. Warner Brothers has already started to implement that years ago. It was pretty controversial, but it is what it is. And I don't think in the end of the day, it's really going to be used on the creative side of things, because here's the aspect of it. And it's something that Tom Conkle tweeted about, which is that it removes the "do you have what it takes" element. Do you have that drive and determination? Do you have the fortitude and the perseverance to actually do this job? If it removes that, it then becomes, the result ends up not having any value, because it's reliant on someone else doing the work as opposed to you just asking for it. And it's basically like the relationship between an executive and a creative. The executive says, "I've got this idea." It's a thriller with Someone is, we'll call it the fall. They've been thrown out of a plane, very, very high up, and it's going to be a 45-minute thriller where most of it is him falling, and he's got to figure out a way to survive. And you as the writer are assigned, okay, you have to now write it. You have to write a 90-minute movie where 45 minutes of that is a guy falling from an extreme altitude. And, does he live or die at the end? We don't know. Like, that's a difficult thing to do. So, but again, it'd be turning everybody, instead of them being a writer or an actor or a producer or director, it would turn them into an executive that comes up with a silly idea that might not actually be a good movie, and having an artificial intelligence doing it. Just seems like it wouldn't be as creative, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. Who knows? Excuse me. So we have a Fractal Brain asks Script Doctor, why the streaming services do not make some channels that diffuse their content most of the time, and maybe some live also, would reduce the issues of having a hard time choosing. Well, I do know that Netflix is experimenting with live content. I believe they're doing some game shows, one of which might be a Squid Game version. We do know that ESPN's got live streaming, and I think Max is going to be doing something live as well. Paramount Plus has CBS Live on them. So there are some experimentations on that. But yes, I don't know why streaming services and their interface is the way it is. It seems silly to me. It seems like it makes it harder. It seems like it's possibly algorithm dependent, where it's like, instead of you stumbling on something that you might like, it's trying to predict what you might like. But at the same time, it feels like it's also manipulating you into what you're going to like and what you're going to watch. For instance, here's a funny story. So I'm a big fan of the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons and comic books and fun adventure stuff. And one of my friends saw the Venture Brothers before I did. And they assumed that I wouldn't like it because it's not my type of humor. It's not my type of genre. And they kept on trying to say over and over again that I wouldn't like it. And I never understood why they would do that. But essentially, they were just taking the limited information they knew about my taste and who I was, and trying to establish that, okay, if I'm going to see a new show that I'm going to recommend, it's going to be this, 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 and it's not going to be these other things. But I didn't have an Adult Swim at the time, so all I heard would mean was like you'd say a joke with regards to the Venture Brothers, and I wouldn't know the reference of it, so it was but I would know like a pulp culture reference that it was doing, because some of the Venture Brothers jokes are pulp culture references and pretty brilliant ones. But I wouldn't get it and be like, oh yeah, it's from the Venture Brothers. You wouldn't like that show. Well, I end up moving to an area where I could get access to Adult Swim, and I saw episodes of the Venture Brothers, and it's one of my favorite cartoon shows. And I am super excited that in the next couple of days, their movie is hitting Blu-ray, and I can't wait to check it out. But I feel like that situation where you have a friend that says, oh, you wouldn't like it type of thing, is what an algorithm on a streaming service or even on YouTube or what have you is doing to you. They're saying, we're not even going to mention it. We don't think you're going to like it, so we're just going to not even let you know it exists. And I don't think that's helpful at all, because the other part too is, how can your show do well? How can your channel grow if the content might 100% appeal to a lot of people, but the algorithm determines it's not going to, because the audience has not ever taken interest in it beforehand? And that's the thing. Like, one of the aspects of entertainment, one of the reasons why new IP is needed is because, yes, people don't know if it's going to work. That's the whole reason why it's new. And you got to put it out there and let the audience decide. And if you restrict it, then the audience isn't truly deciding, in which case the IP never goes anywhere. And that's why we are stuck with the IPs that we have. There hasn't been anything really new since Harry Potter. We got really close once with the Kingsman Unfortunately, the second movie was pretty bad. The prequel that they made, what I thought was pretty decent, but I don't think it did enough to warrant any follow up to that. But it was a nice counter spy series, counter to James Bond. I wish we got more of that. I really liked the first one a lot. But yeah, we're just not getting the IPs that we should, and I think it has to do with the fact that we're relying too much on digital, digital software, or no, all software is digital. Sorry, just relying too much on software and programs as opposed to, just get it out there, see how it plays. We got the Basco scenario. Fellow Canadian says, "Hey, bud, hope you're doing well." I am. I hope you are doing well over there where you are. I believe you're in Quebec. So I'm glad to see you here. Let's see. Read by Nature says, what nobody predicted about streaming was the half hour or so you'd spend flicking through things just trying to decide what to watch. Yeah, a lot of people basically did not equate streaming to basically browsing the video store or turning on the TV Guide channel. For those of you that might not be aware, so there used to be a channel on television you'd go to. In my neighborhood, it was always like 05 on the dial, and it would just show you the listings, television listings for the next like 90 minutes or 2 hours. And if you wanted to see something like that, check out the Wayne's World DVD or Blu-ray. Their menu is that thing. It's that old format. You got a preview box of random shows going on. You've got your another little window, which usually showed either your network or your affiliate or what have you, or anything else. And then you'd have the time slots on the left-hand side, or sorry, the channels on the left-hand side, and then the time slots on the top margin. And then in each block, you'd have the show and when it would run. Oh man, I remember that channel. You get some really cool stuff here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, 6. You sent me the Ron Perlman video. Thank you so much. Let's you know what? Let's check it out. Bear with me a moment as I do that. I'm certain because it's Ron Perlman, he's probably cursing a lot. So let me see what we got here. Bear with me for a moment as I get this up. All right, let's brace yourselves, folks. We're going to take a look at this Ron Perlman video. Thanks to 6, much appreciated. Let's hear what Hellboy has to say. He's been a little off his game recently. Oops, let's close. There we go. Close that down. All right.
Before I get off this, the motherfucker.
Oh, great.
Who said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, motherfucker.
Jeez.
There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial. Some of it is karma. And some of it is just figuring out who the fuck said that. And we know who said that. And where he fucking lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making $27 fucking million a year for creating nothing. Be careful, motherfucker. Be really careful. Because that's the kind of shit that stirs shit up. Peace out.
Well, the peace out stuff is a little ironic there. But wow, Mr. Ron Perlman implying some things that I don't agree with. Listen, I get it. If someone who said that, that's uncool. That's egregious. And yeah, I don't think that's I think the implications that he made are crossing a line to a degree. But again, free speech. He can say whatever he wants, and I will defend him for saying it, but I may not agree with it at all. And I will say, yeah, making some sort of statement like that, like we want to starve people talent out and make them lose their houses. That's a horrible thing for them to say, but it's also horrible to imply that an attack is going to happen at that person's home as well. So thank you for sharing that, Six. Much appreciated. So, the other part too is that it also shows that he's not taking the higher ground. Because I would basically say, listen, if you're saying they're going to starve us out of your house, what makes you think you're going to be able to hold on to yours when you have no revenue to pay your mortgage? But again, he makes a lot. Again, the guy makes a lot of money, so I don't think he has to worry about mortgages. But that is something to think about as well. Who was it? Rod Stewart had this great thing. I'm not a huge fan of Rod Stewart. I know he's got popular fans. If you love his music, awesome. I'm hit or miss on him stuff, but he basically says that his fans are more than welcome to take photos of his house because without them, he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't have had it. He basically says they helped him pay for it. And that's what Rod Stewart said. And he said that like 20 odd years ago. So, that would be, it'd be nice for, some studio execs were able to buy their house because of not just the fans, but the people they hired to, bring those fans in, allowed them to do so. They kept that on the surface of their mind. I would for sure. In fact, if I ever make enough money that I can own a property, I know I will not allow tours, but you can definitely take photos of my home. Not the inside, unless you're really, really nice person. I'm not going to commit to any promises other than if fans helped pay for myself to have a really nice home and a nice living, they are more than welcome to take photos of that house. My only stipulation is block out the address number on there, just so that people don't send me, just so that Jared Leto doesn't send me gross stuff like he sent some of us when we were working on Suicide Squad back in the day. The Introspect M says, it doesn't make sense to me that a studio would hide numbers just to avoid residuals. I would assume if there are residuals to be had, then the studio is also making money on the property. Yeah, it'd be kind of like trying to hide the box office numbers for a feature film. Don't you think? I mean, you need to advertise that, not just, to your competitors in the studio system, but also to your investors. They need to know that you're making good decisions, that you're making movies people want to see. They also need to know you're making television people want to see and streaming shows that people want to see. It's a key aspect of advertising, and the fact that streaming doesn't do it really boggles the mind. I know we got like Samba TV and a couple of other aspects that are trying to figure out those numbers, but really it is an outside party taking an educated guess over that. Josh Hammond says Script Doctor's real name Scott Dwayne. Just kidding. Yes, no, my real name is not Scott Dwayne. Although a lot of people have assumed my name is Scott. I don't know why. I would like to be a Scott. Scott's a cool name. But I am not a Scott. Let's see what else we're going up here. What your first thought says, Script Doctor, sorry, script, poor choice of words. There was a recent video that has come out of Ron Perlman somewhat threatening executives to burn down their house. Cheers, mate. I did not infer the burning down part, but I definitely, I no worries. What's your first thought? Yes, I think that that video, you know what? Ron Perlman needs a writer. If he were to tell me this, I'd be like, I can rewrite this to make it first less incriminating on you, and second, get your point across that's far more accessible to the average people as well. So yeah. Darius says maybe ask Jennifer Hale. Oh yeah, she was interviewed during the voice actor strike a few years ago. Also, the cast of Critical Role are actors and directors for animation. Yes, Jennifer Hale, great voice actress. Jennifer Hale, if I'm not mistaken, she voiced Miss Marvel on Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes cartoon. And I was really hoping when they announced they're doing a Captain Marvel movie that would be the interpretation they were going with. Unfortunately, they went the exact opposite direction. But Jennifer Hale, good voice actor, really has a lot of range and versatility. So yes, if you are fans of voice acting or cartoons and whatnot, and you want to get some information, I think Jennifer Hale is a great source to reach out to. Also, Rob Paulson, who does the voice of Yakko on Animaniacs, and a whole series of other voices would probably be good. And I think Billy West is Billy West on Twitter. I can't remember. But yeah, check out those guys. They might have some interesting thoughts, and hopefully that'll be useful to you, for you animation nuts out there, which I'm a little bit of a part of. Again, I like a lot of older cartoons. The newer stuff, it's few and far between. But if I find one, I'll give it a shot. Absolutely. All right. Neil says, I too want to produce an animated movie or series. It's such a versatile medium, but as you said, it's expensive and new properties as well. I can see why studios may be reticent. Yeah, I hear you out there. The other part too, and this is a stipulation that I don't think is very fair, but I understand where it's coming from because of the 80s primarily. But cartoons are still given this stigma that it's only for younger people, like between the ages of 4 and 18, when that's not really the case, because a lot of adults still enjoyed cartoons even back in the 50s. So you have a classic series called Rocky and Bullwinkle, which adults watched more than children did. Because again, Rocky and Bullwinkle was written essentially for adults, but not with, innuendo. Well, some innuendo, not a whole lot, but it was written mostly for adults. Kids enjoyed it because it was silly. It's silly execution, but it had a lot of really cool jokes and gags in there for adults. I mean, just the fact that they have a university called What's Sama to You. Kids don't get that, but grown-ups do. And that's just one example I want to say. I would love to revisit some Rocky and Bullwinkle if time allows. Let's see here. Reed by Nature says, didn't Pacino just father a future alimony payment? No comment, but a good joke, Reed. I appreciate that. The Introspect M says, to me, the desire for honest feedback and to improve one's abilities in art is what separates true craftsmen from the lack for a better word term poser. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I wish there were so more people. Again, this is an industry that is 99% rejection. You have to have some thick skin in order to persevere in that. And excuse me. And that's just the way things kind of are on it. So it is what it is. I wish when it came to that thick skin, they'd also have a stronger head, but not always the case. We have a Novella Princess for $4.99. Thank you so much. Asks, I was wondering why soap operas are on a different contract. That is a good question. I think I have an answer to that. Let me verify. I believe a Deadline had an article on this. I'll go over some of the stuff. So let's take a look at that. That is a great question, Novella Princess. Thank you for the chat there. We'll go here. So SAG-AFTRA will allow some truly independent producers to film during strike if they sign the interim agreements. We already covered that. Excuse me. SAG-AFTRA soon will be signing interim agreements with truly independent producers that will allow many of them to start or continue production during the strike, as long as they are not affiliated with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers and agree to be bound retroactively to whatever contract terms eventually are achieved with the AMPTP when the strike is settled. So that should address a lot of the questions you guys have on anything that's being produced during the strike that might get sold to a studio that is aligned with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Excuse me. So we have a question here. What does the SAG-AFTRA strike mean for your production? The Guild asks on its FAQ page for independent producers some of these questions and answers below. Question: what if I'm an independent producer who is not part of the AMPTP? Answer: for independently produced content that comes within the scope of a strike order, the producer may qualify for an interim agreement that would allow such productions to continue working during the strike. All work and services under the TV theatrical agreement and related contracts is struck work. This includes the Guild's ultra-low budget projects agreement, the moderate low budget projects agreement, the low budget theatrical agreement, and the special new media agreement. But truly independent non-AMPT productions that want to shoot under those agreements may be eligible for an interim agreement that will allow them to keep filming. The Guild also noted, the Guild also notes that no interim agreement is necessary for productions filming under several of the Guild's lowest budget agreements because they are not being struck. They include the short project agreement, the micro budget agreement, the student film agreement, and the independent new media agreement. The Guild says that the terms of the interim agreement will be posted once approved pursuant to SAG-AFTRA governance procedures. The FAQ continues. My production would like to use the interim agreement. What is the next step? The answer is, if you would like to apply for an interim agreement, please contact your assigned business representatives. If you have questions about the interim agreement, please email sagaftrastrike@sagaftra.org. As a producer, what if I sign to the interim agreement terms and a deal with the AMPTP differs from the interim agreement? SAG-AFTRA intends for the interim agreement to largely be conformed to the AMPTP agreement on a going forward basis once the membership ratifies successor agreements with the AMPTP. On day one of the actors' strike, meanwhile, there are still lots of SAG-AFTRA members working, and the Guild encourages them to keep doing so. That's because they're working or seeking work under one or more of the Guild's many contracts that aren't subject to the walkout. Soap opera actors, for instance, can still work because they're covered by what's called the Network Television Code. So there's your answer, novella princess. Excuse me. So soap operas, for instance, can still work because they're covered by what's called the Network Television Code, which is separate and apart from the one that's being struck, the TV, theatrical, and streaming contract. Working on variety shows, talk shows, and game shows is also allowed for the same reason. To help members traverse its labyrinth of struck and non-struck contracts, the Guild has put out electronic flyers showing members which contracts they can and cannot work under. So we've already covered that part. So basically, yes, with regards to the strike, the Network Television Code is not a part of that. And you know why it's probably not a part of that? Because the Network Television Code is advertised based, and it has numbers through the Nielsen ratings, and it has contracts made with the networks and the affiliates with regards to how much money is coming in, and the residuals are paid out properly. So that is something to consider. And I think it's also something that the SAG and WGA are trying to have applied to the streaming theatrical model. Okay, so thank you so much for that. That was a great question. I'm glad I was able to transition to that tab that I had on the standby. Chris 1 says, I'm hoping Oppenheimer, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Napoleon all do well. So when this ends, hopefully studios will be more likely to fund new stories. Me too. I'm liking these change of pace. Although I have expressed some of my criticism with Napoleon. Again, just stop making the people that are not English speaking in origin with English accents. It's silly. Not only that, I mean, it's stupid. You know how many people, American friends I know that we've gone to like France before, and they're like, I got to practice my French, and then they do a British accent, and you think they're joking at first, and then you realize they're not. It's too much. If I had a nickel, boy, I'd have I'd have actually maybe a few $1,000s. Michael Dietrich brings up a good question. Says, I wonder how the Amazon model is working for them. The Prime membership buys you some benefit on the shopping side, along with a pretty big streaming catalog included. Yes, I'm curious as to how they do that. I'm quite curious to see how they do that. I'm wondering, because again, I haven't ever had the opportunity to work or see a contract with regards to Amazon streaming shows. So I'm curious to see what type of residuals they have, if they are viewer based or if there's just a flat rate because it's part of a Prime subscription that has multiple benefits onto their more lucrative business model, which is selling and shipping directly to customers' homes. That's a good one. Okay. We have Shinatsky says, question, how much do you think are the studios going to be using this strike to kill bad deals they made in the past? Well, let's see. The 90-day threshold for some force majeure deals is coming up in 2.5 weeks. The 60-day threshold has already passed, and I know some deals have been broken. And I also know that some deals have been broken within the first 48 hours of the initial strike. Again, the studios are only going to break deals which they think are not going to be in their best interest. If there is some stuff there that you see a lot of potential with, they do not have to enact the force majeure aspect. But the irony is that they could have always broken those deals. However, the force majeure, I believe, allows them to break the deal without any payout. So if they decide to cancel the deal, there might be a contract stipulation where if they cancel it without the effects of force majeure, they have to pay out X amount of dollars here. This might be an opportunity for them to pay out, to cancel without any sort of payout. Excuse me. But yeah, listen, bad deals are going to be killed. There might be some potentially good deals killed in the process as well, as with all things. A lot of shows that we might not have heard of that might have been on the rise to becoming hits might be sacrificed as well, which is pretty unfortunate. But hopefully the idea is that if they're going to be one step closer. Whatever deal happens, they might end up being one step closer to figuring out a more sustainable model, similar to what is currently working now with the network television code or something of that nature. That would be my speculation at this point. Michael Deach is asking, are any studios using scab actors? Currently, not that I know of. Again, studios, they are in agreements with these unions and only usually hire those union people that work in the union. And if you get hired and you're not part of the union, you become a member. Now, I know some people are like saying, well, if you are compelled to become a member, we're not necessarily compelled. If you want the job, part of the terms of the job is you join the union. And if you don't want to join the union, well, then you don't have to join the union, but you're probably not going to get the job. That is the trade-off. They're not forcing you to do it in the same sense as like, this is the only job available. You have to work this job. And on top of that, you have to be a member of the union. That's not in that situation. They don't do that. Now, I do know some actors that did join SAG, not like it, and decide to leave the union, and they only work on purely independent, non-studio related projects, and that is their stuff. I know a lot of people in Canada that do that. They don't like ACTRA, and I don't blame them. It's not always the best for new actors, and they work primarily in independent and very low budget independent. We're talking like movie productions under $100,000, and they are very happy to be in that situation. Excuse me. We have Tim Morel. Hello, Tim. Fellow creative says, my name is Earl. Could have potentially gone on for more seasons than it got. Yeah. No, it had a great structure. The fact that he has a list and is trying to get in good karma by helping the people that he has wronged in his past. I thought that was great. I think the goal was that they're trying to get 500 episodes or not. No, not 500 episodes. Sorry. It was 5 something. But no, they could have gone on for a long time. But yeah, I missed that show. It was really cool. Jason Lee, Ethan Suplee, and yeah, great cast. Let's see. Sorry, just catching up here before we call it. Michael Deach says, I worked on AI music in the 90s couldn't model human creativity. The human psychology of creativity is poorly understood. Can't model what you don't understand. Exactly. Creativity and imagination, try and define it cohesively and then try to replicate it at the same time. Very, very difficult to do. I think that's what makes us a special species. The fact that we can kind of create something from nothing, so to speak. Andrew B. Versfeld says, would you prefer writing your own original screenplay or one a producer asked you to write? I'm assuming if a producer specifically hires you to write a film, you're guaranteed pay and credit. Well, when I negotiate to write something that the producer has hired, I try my best to make sure I get a lot of money up front. On the independent side of things, that's a lot harder. So you have to have a really ironclad contract. And I don't always like doing those. I usually only would sign up for something like that if it's someone whom I've known for a few years and we've had a very, very stable success with our business models. But again, even at that point, I'm always hesitant. It's just the way it is. But like that's if like a producer's just hiring me to write. If I'm doing a writing partnership where we're partnered together and we're trying to shop a script around, that's a whole nother scenario. It's not the same thing. But yeah, I like writing my own stuff. However, being able to play in another person's sandbox is always a lot of fun because more often than not, I end up finding an IP that I was unfamiliar with at first. And in my research of it, 9 out of 10 times I end up really enjoying the IP and having a blast, having fun with the characters in it. If the creator is still alive, I always reach out to them and I pick their brains. And then I also throw out some questions like, would this fit with this person's character? And I would cite examples to reinforce my interpretation. And if I got those examples wrong, I'd usually be put on the right track and then see how that, option or idea wouldn't work out well. And then I'd start coming up with something new. I haven't had as many of those in the last few years, obviously, due to the pandemic, but that's some of the stuff I really like doing. Again, I'm in the position where if I have an opportunity to write and get paid for it, I'm doing it. And if it's something that I don't like, I will do everything I can to find a way to find something about it that I can like and, have fun with that. Let's see. Moons of Madness. Venture Bros is near genius. Oh, man. Not only are they near genius, but Jackson Public and Doc Hammer have their fingers on the pulse of society better than any other writers I know, better than myself, because they were making fun of all the things that we have issues with in modern media 6 years before they came to surface for the rest of us. It was great. It is absolutely great. Let's see here. Adega Outlaw says, when I get a few extra bucks, I might have to hire script. Well, Adega, I will definitely make time for you. I am digging your stuff. In fact, I've got your books right here. As you know, because I told you my girlfriend's father took them. So I've got Evolution and Children of the Directive. And I will say this, high praise from my girlfriend's father. He enjoyed them quite well. And I am currently reading, I believe, yes. Just want to make sure I got to check my bookmarks. They don't always have them in the right spots. Yeah. So I am reading Evolution at the moment right now. And I'm currently enjoying it right now. I'm actually quite happy with it. So thank you for that, Adega. Let's see here. What else we got? Oh yeah, comment here. I'm just catching up with the chat. I see we're commenting on Ron Perlman's thing. So let's jump towards the bottom. JD3138 says Maurice LaMarche is also another voice actor with character. He would not do Don Adams' voice for Inspector Gadget until Don gave his blessing. Excuse me. Yes. That's one of the things I appreciated. Maurice LaMarche is a great voice actor. I love his Orson Welles. He's also does The Brain, which is basically just him doing Orson Welles. But yeah, he's a great one. He also does a fantastic Columbo, Peter Falk. Really like him. So yeah, reach out to him regarding animations questions he might have. Wildman Beyond says, it's a bummer that Stranger Things season 5 is being affected by this because I'm a writer and I have ideas for the final season along with Cobra Kai. Yeah, Cobra Kai, I think they got their 6th season and they can't go into production at the moment because of this strike. Netflix really did delay pulling the trigger on that, which is unfortunate. And I'm really hoping they're able to get Hilary Swank in on for season 6 because that would tie everything in nicely together. Dega says, super love, thanks. Yeah, man, dude, I'm always down for reading new stories, especially for anyone that's out there that's got a book, wants me to read it. I will do my best to get a copy of it. Now, be advised, and I appreciate all your donations, everyone, but money is a little tight with regards to the fact that I can't do any screenwriting work, but I do consults for those interested in writing. And that with a little bit of the YouTube and Patreon is going to be my income for the next little bit. I am also heading out looking for day jobs as well, because I am not above working a regular job. I have no problems with that because a lot of people that would watch my stuff would be working in those types of jobs. And I like the camaraderie. Plus, I love the stories that all those people have in those experiences. It's something that I can use to inspire me for characters and conflicts. It's great stuff. Okay. And hey, speaking of which, we got Mr. Reborn for 20 says, how does one hire you script? Well, depends on what you want to hire me for. If you have a general question or ideas, my DMs on Twitter are open. You can also email me at thescriptdoctorphd@gmail.com. I do my best to try and get back to everyone that reaches me as quickly as possible. My average time is around 36 hours, depending on how much flood of contacts I get. If I don't think I can give you a coherent response in time, I try to send a message saying, I'll get back to you at X amount when I have more thoughts on your questions. But yeah, you can reach me out in those two ways. Are pretty effective. And I'm more than well happy to talk to anyone and everyone, because I like meeting new people and building additional friendships. That's part of the networking behavior that people in my industry should be doing a bit more of. So I hope that answers your question. We got Sam Dune, big fan of Dune, says, hi script, how would you adapt a story like the Hyperion Canto series? Well, I've got Dan Simmons's book. It's actually underneath a bunch of other books on my top shelf. I'm looking at it right now, which you can tell why I'm facing it, as my voice is probably coming in a little softer on the mic. That's an epic. That would be tricky to adapt, but I would love to take on the challenge. That would be probably the one where I'd have to go into solitude for maybe 3 or 4 months, just so that I could read the story well enough to not have all of it committed to memory, but enough of it committed to memory that I can break it down for a visual medium. And I'd probably do it as a multi-season miniseries, maybe. But that's just off the top of my head. But boy, I like Hyperion. Okay, but thanks for that question. Tomby says, I'll hire you to smash your enemies, have them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women. Yes. Yes. Hopefully, I think we're going to be doing some Conan. Yeah, we'll be doing that, I think, with Nina and some of the gals. So keep an eye out for that. If not, we'll probably review a movie. I've seen a couple over the last few days. One, of course, with Mr. Paul Shadow, and a couple of screeners that colleagues of mine wanted to share over Zoom, get our thoughts. I like doing some of those. They're pretty fun. It's the next best thing. And yeah, so we'll see what happens. Excuse me. Read by Nature says retail work with afternoon and evening shifts are a good source of stories. That's when the crazies come out. Oh yeah, I remember during the first writer's strike, I was working a part-time job, and a person came in with an open head wound. And even when we offered to call the ambulance for them or provide them first aid, they're like, "For what?" So it was pretty interesting. Josh Hammond has asked, "Hey, Script, have you got around to Ben 10, a 2006 series? If so, thoughts?" That's where he has the watch and can like transform into one of 10 different things, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen all of it. I think that was around the time of Kim Possible and whatnot. So, no, I'm a little behind on that. But I wonder if some of my god kids might know that show. I might ask them some more details. They're really good at explaining the hip stuff today for it. I just learned from them the new word drip. Drip apparently means cool. So there's that. But yeah, I'll ask them and get that checked out. Yes, okay, cool. Well, thank you. Yeah, I gotta organize that stuff. Like right now, I'm prepping for a really fun conversation with Andrew, Caffeinated Wolf, one of the guys you've seen on WCBS and who also works for the Ripperverse. We're going to be talking about The Flash. He loves Wally West, so I am refamiliarizing myself with a bunch of his issues from like 1986 up to probably turn of the century. So I'm making sure I'm getting that all in order. And I've got to schedule my time out for that, plus also balance out his schedule as well. But look forward to that. If you are a member of my Patreon, I dropped a awesome interview conversation I had with Robert Meyer Burnett on Mission Impossible and the model that they used with regards to passing the torch from a legacy character to a brand new one and how that works. We also touch on a whole bunch of other stories and films as well. It's a wonderful thing. So if you are not a member, you can go over there and check it out. It is available at the base tier, which is part of the 7-day free trial. And but if you want to wait, I will eventually drop it here on YouTube for you all to take a look at. So that is pretty much it for me. Thank you so much, everyone in the chat, for hanging out with me for the last 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. I want to thank everyone again for donation for the super chat donations. Scott Westbrook, Cesarjan, Andrew Frederick, the Memes of Destruction, Nick Allanen, Cryam 6, Novella Princess, and Mr. Reborn. Thank you so much for that support. It's greatly appreciated. If you'd like me to do these more streams, let's leave a comment with ideas for titles. I'm thinking maybe I might do something called like Script on Sundays and also Script on Saturdays for a Saturday Sunday streaming. So SOS would be the initialism. That's something you think would be fun. I'll start putting together a format for that. In the meantime, as I get more information and have more thoughts to share, I will be doing some streams here and there for you all to participate. This has been a fun show, a fun time, great interaction with all of you. I hope you have a great wonderful rest of your weekend and an awesome week. In the meantime, as I say before, when it comes to great stories, it all starts with the script.